And this right ear is extremely swollen to the point where I can't really insert my standard size ulnar suction probe. The ear canal won't allow it to inflame, too narrow. And you can also notice when I put the endoscope in, we get a bit of mist, a bit of fogging, a bit of condensation in the lens. And that all leans towards an increased temperature to the ear. And when you've got an infection, that can lead to an increased ear temperature, of course. And what's happening is all the hot air is condensing on the colder lens of the endoscope. As soon as I go in with the suction probe, and we're having to use a fine suction tip here to get access into the ear, that misting evaporates, it disappears. If I just left the endoscope in for about 5 or 10 seconds, it will automatically demist the lens itself. An endoscope has optical fibres that run throughout the length of the rod lens, which is the... so if you've seen an endoscope before, you'll see there's a long metal rod lens, and that's all surrounded by optical fibres which transfers the light into the ear. And that also has some heat, and so eventually that heat from the optical fibres will warm up the lens of the endoscope and demist it. Anyway, I just thought I'd explain that. So we've just cleaned the occlusion, the infected debris. There is some dead skin and discharge on the patient's eardrum. Now, the eardrum is quite flaccid. When I mean flaccid, it does vibrate a bit you can see there. So the actual suction tip is causing the eardrum to come in. It's almost suctioning the eardrum into the tip of the suction probe. So you've got to be a bit careful here. And because the ear is so swollen, it's so difficult to get access. As I said, we're using a fine end suction tip. I think I'm going to bend the tip a bit just to curl around the canal wall on the right. So the canal wall on the right near the eardrum, we call that the medial, which means deep in the ear, anterior canal wall. And I'm just trying to get access there. We can see the majority of the eardrum already. Patient can hear significantly better. I'm just trying to mop up as much as I can off the patient's eardrum. We have referred them to their doctor so they can get some prescribed medication for this. This infection was caused by the patient allowing water to enter. They had a previous instance of this a couple of years ago where they also had an infection, and on both occasions it's because they went abroad and were swimming in the water, and it's obviously something with the right ear. The left ear wasn't infected. Something with this right ear that it's susceptible to ear infections once water enters. So you can see the hammer bone there running vertically at the middle of the screen. So I think we're more or less done. There's some debris at the top. It is kind of a bit stubborn, so that's a very sensitive part of the ear. So just want to see if I can peel it to get a little bit off. So that's the patient's eardrum. It's fully visible. I think on this occasion you'll be able to see the bend of the suction probe when I enter. So just curl the tip. You can see the bend to the right, which then enables me to get around the medial anterior canal wall, so the front bony part of the ear canal, which is very sensitive, which then I'm just trying to get some of this debris off, but it is a bit sticky there, and it's some dry skill a bit more laterally, so near the entrance. So compared to when the first view we had of the patient's ear, where it was completely occluding with debris and discharge, we can cleared all that away now. I can see the eardrum, and it's just down to the antibiotics doing the rest for the patient. Obviously, again, discuss strict water precautions with the patient to avoid water entering the ear. So this is the same patient's left ear, and we're working laterally, so near the entrance. You can see it's a lot of dry skin, matted earwax, and I'm just trying to elevate this, separate this from the canal wall, the skin adhesions. And although I separated it, it was quite stubborn, so I think I'm going to go with an ear hook. Now, I've always explained this in all my videos, and I explain it to all the clear wax delegates, and I'm not sure whether it's the case in this particular procedure, but you'll see in a moment. I'm going to go in with the hook, and this is why we need to be so careful when we're putting hooks and scoops. And I know sometimes when I read some of the comments, they sometimes overly critical. They just don't appreciate the sensitivity of the ear. And you can see that it looked like the perfect extraction using a hook. I inserted it in the opening, wasn't too deep. But when we go back in, you'll see there's a little mark at the base of the ear canal. And now the patient didn't flinch at all when I removed that. I didn't feel any resistance myself when I removed that. But you're just going to be careful, because that could have been caused, and I'm not 100% convinced it is, because there's no reaction from the patient, by the tip of the hook as I went over the dry skin and the wax plug. When I was then rotated the hook to pull it out, we've got to be so careful you don't make contact with the bony part of the ear canal. And I always tell the clear wax delegates when I train them that don't be careful not to over embed it so the tip then can touch the base of the ear canal. Now, obviously, because we can't see the whole ear canal, sometimes we don't know the structure, the anatomy of the ear canal. If you look back there, the ear canal is a bit more inclined. The left-hand side of the ear canal, so the front part of the ear, is a bit more protruding, more so than most people's. And we're completely blinded at that stage. We weren't aware of the patient's ear anatomy. I think the likelihood of the cause of that is that when I extracted that dry skin, because it was really dry and coarse, it could have scratched it, because that was a bit deeper than I think I went with the ear hook. And I was watching the video back several times just to see the position of the hook. I think it was more to the right of the hook, and I don't think I went that deep in the first place anyway. But it's just something that we got to bear in mind. We're going to be really careful. We don't want to cause the patient any distress or injury or trauma. And whenever you insert hooks and scoops, carets, jobs and horns, forceps, and even suction tips in the bony part of the ear canal, deep in the ear, we're going to be so gentle and cautious, because that's a really sensitive part of the ear. I hope you enjoyed that.